Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my Astral Jewels platform. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing okay. And we're now going into the April 2024 review of planets. So let's get stuck in. March is flying by, and of course, we've got Easter at the end of March this year. So, big holiday coming up for those in Australia. So, firstly, just a reminder that I am a sidereal astrologer, not a tropical mainstream astrologer. And sidereal is in line with the sky. So, it's a visual. And I encourage you to get into the astronomy side of astrology if you can. It's of great benefit for many things. The third eye, for one, it actually helps to hone your third eye by doing stargazing. And plus, it's a wondrous thing to look at, is the finding constellations and planets in the sky. So firstly, Sun in Pisces from the 14th of March 2024 to the 13th of April. So we've got 13 days of April where it's in Pisces and not actually in Aries. So we covered the Pisces energy last month, and now we're going to go into Aries. So the Aries energy here, we've got the Sun in Aries from the 14th of April to the 15th of May. Okay, now to locate Aries, it's easier to find Aries if you first look for Taurus, which is much easier to find. It looks like a Christmas tree in the sky. So have a go looking for Taurus first. And once you've found Taurus, it's almost like one of those constellations you can't unsee. Once you've found it, you'll always find it much easier to find in the night sky. So as you tune into this constellation of Aries, have a look for the Alpha and the Beta stars. So the Alpha is Hamal and the Beta star is Sheraton. And these are often Hebrew names that have been given to stars. So just so that you're aware. So as you tune into this constellation and particularly into these stars, you're likely to get a sense of Mars energy. And that energy will feel like the sensation of willfulness, there's strength. A similar feeling is felt by the star Antares in the constellation of Scorpio. And remember, we get influenced by all of what's in the night sky. And the vibrations and the resonance that these planets and stars give off are tangible, and you can feel it much easier if your third eye is active. But have a go even if it's not, and see what you can feel from the vibrations that are coming off the stars and the planets. Okay, so some of them are really easy to tune into, like Venus, for instance. You'll feel that Venusian flavor that comes with it, something beautiful. And it's like your energy just turns into something that feels beautiful. So just with the Aries energy, you're going to feel Mars qualities because Mars is the ruler of Aries. So it's going to make you quite feel willful and with more strength. So the sun moving through Aries could be a game changer in terms of more action. And you personally are likely to get that sense of willfulness and are likely to make plans for action. Or you will spontaneously undertake more vigorous activities that could be, exercise or any activity that actually encourages action is Aries. Okay. So now I'm going to go into the wheel. Now, what you want to try and do is get the screen enlarged to get the benefit of seeing these planets, these planetary wheels. And it also pays also to know what the symbols are for each planet. So get onto your Google and get to see what each symbol is, and it'll be easier to follow. So this is sort of a little bit like an astrology lesson and an astronomy lesson that you're getting here. And remember, in the ancient days, astrology and astronomy were not separate. They were combined. Okay? So not like what has gone on now, where science or Rome decided to make them separate separate entities, so to speak, which has added a lot of I could say nonsense to astrology, but it's taken the essence out of what astrology was all about. And that is the influence of the planets and stars on our body, and it's a tangible feeling. And back in the ancient days, it was very, very easy to feel. But now science has said it's all pseudo nonsense, pseudoscience, and you know, as I said, it's actually the original psychology. So it's an art well worth getting to know, and doing a bit more stargazing is really helpful. Okay, so the first wheel here, I've started from the 1st of April. You know, globally, there is a lot of momentum in terms of planetary forces, and we have this massive alignment from Mars and Saturn, which are conjunct in Aquarius, to Venus, which is conjunct Neptune in Pisces, the Sun, the North Node, Chiron, and Mercury is conjunct, which means together, in Pisces, and we still have Jupiter and Uranus conjunct in Aries. So I'm going to split them up just a little bit here to give you an explanation of what this means. So at the same time, Mercury, by the way, Mercury in Aries is squaring Pluto in Capricorn. And that's creating a level of major communication that involves depths, deep communication. And for you personally, you may be in a phase where you need to speak up. And for some, speaking up can be fraught with danger if what you say is controversial and brings confrontation. And even if it does bring confrontation, stay with the feelings of what these two forces bring. You know, you'll learn a lot from, you know, about how you are expressing yourself, your opinions, and even your creativity. That's also likely to come out, right? So don't be afraid to speak up, but also be aware that you could be dropping bombs with your voice. And it's all a transformative learning experience. So just be aware of that. It's this dropping bombs could get you into a lot of trouble. Now, I do, you know, go for it. Don't not communicate, but as it's happening, just be aware of what is coming up, what is happening. It can create a lot of frustration for people, and for some, they prefer to stay at home instead of interacting with people because of the confrontation that can happen. And that's very much part of Mercury Pluto. So globally, there are likely to be a lot of heavy negotiations. And some countries you'll see are having peace talks, and other countries may be tearing up peace agreements and rearranging trade links. Mercury is the planet of trade. You know, and because of Pluto being in Capricorn, the constellation of structuring, it is likely anything corrupt and unworkable will be demolished with new negotiations placed on the table. Mercury and Pluto is also likely to bring conflict in communication, as I've said, and a lot of willful and in some cases war-like communications with Mercury being in Aries. So going back through the alignment, also we've got Mars and Saturn conjunct in Aquarius. That's the first two on the top of that wheel that starts this massive alignment that's going on at the moment. And the Mars-Saturn conjunction is sextile to Uranus and Jupiter. And this combination of forces is very structured and is likely to bring about changes. Mars and Saturn work very well together if you have good intentions and are organized. Otherwise, it can just run amok. If the Mars willfulness does not use integrity, the results can be perilous. So if Mars ignores the integrity of the Saturn force and it does its own thing, of course, this is dangerous and anything can happen. Likely action will be unchecked and completely out of control. Mars and Saturn need to work together. You need the structure of Saturn, the know-how, taking the responsibility of Saturn, and add that to will and action and being able to complete tasks. You can understand working together is what is needed with these forces. Okay, and with what's going on at the moment, that's not a bad thing to have Mars and Saturn conjunct and angled to Uranus and Jupiter. So Uranus and Jupiter conjunction is fire in big measure, and I've spoken about this over the last several months because they have been together since I think the end of November, December of last year. And in Aries, we have a huge force for change. Uranus heralds in change. Jupiter enlarges that, makes it more buoyant. It's more in your face than ever. And when angled to Mars and Saturn in Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus, this is a massive force for change. And personally, you are likely to have made decisions about who you want in your space. Saturn, I've spoken a lot about in terms of its influence in Aquarius. You will have endured conflicts with friends and acquaintances, which can also include family members. And some of you will have made decisions to separate from this old pattern that is not serving you. You're likely leaning toward having like-minded people in your life and people who support you again, instead of fighting against you. It's really, really important. And many changes are taking place in terms of who you want in your space, who you want around you. That's the personal level. Globally, with this configuration, another country just joined BRICS, which is Iraq, in case you're not aware of that. So here too, we see a shift in allies for trade purposes. The conflicts between the deep state and the alliance, the battle of good against evil, is taking place. And this will continue all through April. On a personal level, there also could be a shift in your own allies, as I've said. Those you thought you could trust, you can't. And those you thought you couldn't trust, you can. There's all sorts of cat and mouse games going on at the moment. And just be aware, who's fooling who. And what are the intentions of people? What's the integrity that's going on? So big changes going on in terms of who you want to associate with, who's speaking truth to you, who is not. Okay. The sun is conjunct the North Node, which is the point of destiny, as well as Chiron and Mercury. So this conjunction and part of the massive alignment is in Pisces. Chiron is attending to the woundedness we have endured throughout our lifetime because of the influence of the age of Pisces. And here we've got Chiron doing its thing in Pisces. It's acting as an awakener. The delusion and control we have been under was masterfully driven by dark forces, also known as the deep state, or, you know, the world's elite. It's another way of putting it. Whatever name you want to call the negative influences we have experienced, give it a name: deep state, elite, whatever. Chiron, or Chiron's involvement here, is more about awakening and seeing the wounds, seeing the negative influences and changing as a result of having learned all the lessons you have learned or you've needed to learn, right? For many, it will be like coming out of a coma, coming out of this massive sleep, the dreaminess of Neptune. The effects of Neptune, which is the ruler of Pisces, has had us enabling the destruction of democracy, along with our complacency, pretty well allowing our systems to be taken over and demonized. You know, I'm talking about, you know, big pharma, big food, big ag, our education system, our justice system, and you name them, all of those systems. There is a lack of integrity in most structures that are ruled or managed by governments and big business. I'm not sure which could be regarded as working to the full benefit of humanity. I don't know which system you could actually say is on point with what it needs to do. But, you know, this Chiron in Neptune is a big awakener for many people. Many people have suffered as a result of this delusion and of losing our democracy, our rights. Some people don't even know that they've lost it. They have no idea that this is what has happened. And the awakening is occurring now. So watching this Chiron, and we've got, you know, the sun is up with Chiron and the axis of destiny. So it's really in our face what's going on in terms of woundedness. And people, you know, when this happens, it can heighten woundedness. It can activate the triggers of what is wounded. And what you don't want to do is keep being defensive and keep the argument happening and keep being in a fight. You need to see what is playing out and what your part in it is in terms of that delusion and conflict. And heal is demanding a healing of all of us, personally and globally. Right now, if you keep fighting, this is not a period of getting out the guns and the nuclear weapons. This is a time of negotiation where we need to be talking about what's going on, what's wrong, and getting it on the negotiation table, expressing it, get the communication going. We're in a psychological war. It's way different to what we've experienced before. You know, sadly, what's going on over in Israel, that is the past. And, you know, it feels like it's the cabal just doing its last deed. they're not using communication in the way that it can be used. But this is what's coming, and this is what's in our face. And to all the people that are suffering as a result of that ridiculous bloody war over there, that we know who's in charge of and who started it. The people of Israel who are suffering, my heart goes out to you. We need to start changing and being humanity as a whole again. And that's what we're leading to. Change has to happen, and it is happening. You know, speaking of peace, there's also a conjunction between Neptune and Venus at the moment. And this combination of forces is primarily beautiful. On its higher mode, we have high spiritual forces, which we could call the alliance and impulses of love and desire. The impulse could be encouraging you to ponder on what it is you love and want in your life, in the world you live in. What do you want? What's your ideal? What's your desire? What do you love? And the sun's influence also in Pisces will strengthen this impulse. You can easily miss these more spiritual forces if you focus, if your focus is on the negative and the harsher events that are taking place. So perhaps take the time to tune into these Sun, Neptune, Venus forces and aspire for the very best for humanity. These forces really enable connections to higher worlds, and you only have to use your will to do it. It's up to you individually to tune in and make the choice. Have your attitude towards the higher realms and not fighting. Why bother? It's never really got anywhere. Sadly, all those wars were fought for freedom. What freedom? We've lost our democracy. Okay, let's get out of the seriousness. So, on to the eclipse, the solar eclipse. Now, I've gone to the 8th of April here. So this is the day of the solar eclipse that everyone is raving about. And solar and lunar eclipses happen all the time. They are not really special events unless you choose to make them special. Okay, putting that into space. The total solar eclipse will be visible along a narrow track stretching from Texas to Maine on the 8th of April 2024. This is what's being told to us. A partial eclipse will be visible throughout most other states in the US. It's not going to be visible for many countries. So let's see what is happening on this day. So have a look at the wheel there. It doesn't look much different to the 1st of April. So, I want to point out something, that the 8th is not the day that is an exact alignment with the moon. That is on the 9th. It's actually on the 9th in Australia at 4:20 a.m. Interesting, isn't it? So on the 8th, the sun and the moon are not aligned. Just makes me wonder what's going on. The new moon is on the 9th of April in Pisces, not Aries. So your guess is as good as mine as to what is really going on. There's speculation of earthquakes and that there is something else going on. So all I'm prepared to say at this point is let's see what happens. With an eclipse, either the moon or the sun, and in this case it's the sun is covered over as if being blacked out. So the energy of the sun is blocked for a short period. And instead of seeing the phenomena, I invite you to feel it instead. Okay, feel it. So with the sun force, it is very tangible that the light literally goes out with an eclipse and the fullness fades, and you can feel it in your body, you know, the effects that has, this fading, this light and fading. And you can imagine how the myth is told of how the pagans went into a panic mode as if it was the end of the world. Right? So, because the feeling is like that, but then the eclipse passes and the light of the sun is revealed again. The feeling is actually quite tangible. The sense, you sense the fullness of the light, and then the emptiness, then back to a fullness. You know, back in the pagan days, this feeling would have been more acute than it is now. You know, as for there being a dramatic event, again, you know, let's wait and see what happens. I don't want to say one way or the other. It's got to be a visual. You actually have to see what's going to go on, I think, because I think the time of believing what we're being told and what actually happens are two different things. So yeah, just be aware, perhaps. Be interested to see it. Be good to get the visual. Let's just see what takes place. Let's see what takes place. So the next one, in Aries, we have the sun from the 14th of March, Jupiter, Uranus, and Venus. With the sun in Aries, it represents the energies of Sun and Mars, the Sun and Mars force, which is to do with will, leadership, and action. So we've had a movement there. So from the 14th of March, we've got the sun and Jupiter, Uranus, and Venus in Aries. And you know, Aries, it represents that energy of the Sun-Mars force, which is, you know, that will. Again, we're back to that Mars energy, which is really quite forceful. So with the sun coming in there, it's like, whoa, is this what we've been waiting for? The sun to highlight here, the Uranus, Jupiter. These are really fiery forces that are taking place. And you know, Aries is that constellation of war. Mars is about war. So action and willfulness. Is this going to take place more so in April? It's quite possible. But again, you know, we have to wait and see what plays out. Astrology is like time windows, and they trigger events. Don't actually know exactly what event will be triggered, other than we know that events will take place. So there is Saturn, Mars, and Neptune conjunction also, and Neptune will pacify the Mars energy just slightly, and hopefully direct it more towards the heavens, or, you know, towards idealism and compassion, you know, more humanitarian means. Mercury, Venus, Chiron, and the North Node are in conjunction in Pisces. Venus moves away from this conjunction quite quickly. So it's the Mercury, Chiron, and North Node that dominate there. Okay, and again, this is this communication that is going on, for better or for worse, with Pluto plugged into the Mercury. You know, this influences, again, communication in terms of wounds. So watch out what is being triggered. Speaking up will occur, but it is likely to be conflictual. If you cannot frame your arguments with integrity, we've been called to look at integrity, guys. Really, really important. Okay, now going to the end of April. So the end of April, we've got Saturn is out of the alignment by the end of April, but it is still angled to Uranus and Jupiter. Mars and Neptune are still together. Mercury, Chiron, and the North Node are still together. So a lot of, again, I keep saying it, a lot of communication all the way through April. What is going to be revealed? What's going to be spoken about? Does mainstream media start speaking about more of what is going on? Are there more reveals that will happen? Again, we'll wait and see. Venus is conjunct the Sun, plus Uranus and Jupiter are still together in Aries, which is pushing, again, toward war. And it's war of the minds. I'm not saying war as a nuclear war. It doesn't have to be like that, but it's conflict. It's conflictual for change. Venus and the Sun, you know, they go in and out of conjunction throughout the year. So the energy is really quite common. It's not rare for it to be influencing there. So, you know, it can foster the feelings of, you know, this is the Sun Venus, of wanting to be sociable. However, as there are several quite volatile energies with these alignments throughout March and April, particularly the Mercury Chiron, you may need to curb socializing to small stints, you know, particularly if they are going to bring conflict. By all means, get out there. We need to be socializing more and, you know, getting on with our neighbours. And it's for your own mental health as well. So don't hide at home, even if there's conflicts happening. Just be aware and watch your P's and Q's. So watch out if you are continually in conflict. There's something to learn if that's what's going on. You have to look inside yourself. Why am I always in conflict with people? It's something about you that you need to learn if that's what's going on. You're around the wrong people. You know, do you want to keep being in toxic situations where there's always conflict? What is it about you that can't handle these heated discussions? Where's the maturity? Where's the emotional maturity in this? Remember also that at the end of the month, Saturn is still in Aquarius. And of course, it has been for several months. So I've mentioned many times how this energy is pushing you toward dealing with your friends and acquaintances. Your alignment to friendships is important. So you're actually deciphering who you want to be around. That's what's going on with the conflict. All right, so just be aware. Always being aware. Okay, so I'm just going to have a look at, just going to show you the animation applet, guys, starting from the 1st of April. You just keep your eye on from Mars all the way down the left-hand side, and you know, the lines are showing whether they're square or trine, or, you know, that's what degree they are from each other. So just watch how the movements take place. I'm sort of ignoring the moon in amongst all this, but you know, it does have an effect. But I'm starting to get concerned about whether the moon is actually the real one or the fake moon. It's just, I don't know. I don't know, guys. It's really quite confusing. But nonetheless, just keep watching how these planets keep moving and their angles to each other. There's a lot of sextiles going on, a lot of flow. Let's go back. We've got this, the squares going on with Pluto and Mercury. So let's keep going. Keep going. You can see it's moving along. The Sun, by the end of April, we've got the Sun and Mercury, Sun and Venus fully in Aries. And Mercury is still up on the North Node and still with Chiron. This applet does not show Chiron, unfortunately, but it's right there next to the North Node. So it's really this alignment stays intact for most of April. And there we've gone into May. Right, if I keep going forward, I can't wait until June, because that's when June, if I keep going forward, you can see Aries, you can see Uranus, that is right at the edge of Aries. And it's about to go into Taurus. And that happens on the 2nd of June. That's going to be very interesting, because that's the change in values. That's a major shift in our value system. Okay. So just going back to April, and you can see all of these movements taking place on the left-hand side. Okay. Even go to, if I can, it's the 9th of April, where we've got the moon in an exact conjunction with the sun. Very interesting. Okay. So next, what have we got next? Moving along, we've got the full moon and the new moon. So the new moon is in Pisces on the 9th of April at 26 degrees Pisces. It's not in Aries, it's in Pisces. So use the new moon to start new projects or aspire for new things, for creative things. So look at what you desire. What is it that you want to work on? So aspire to bring your intuition on board. Pisces and Neptune energy is on the cards here. Go into higher mode, from delusion into awareness, but aspire for the higher modes. You know, make your intuition stronger and dare to bring your higher self into the world. This is the impulse, guys. Bringing your intuition on board. You bring your intuition on board and you see so much. Don't be afraid of it. We've had our intuition knocked out of us, and it's something that has to come back. And it's extraordinary how spot on you can be if you actually follow what your intuition is trying to tell you. So just be aware of that. Then we've got the full moon in Libra, and Libra is ruled by Venus. So that's on the 24th of April. And yeah, look at the Venusian elements. It's going to bring a really soft, lovely sense to the space, this space that we've been experiencing of conflict. Hopefully gets tempered a bit by this Venusian full moon. So it really is going to make for a very interesting April. And lastly, guys, we have got the retrogrades. And guess what? Just to add to conflict, we have got Mercury retrograde from the 1st of April to the 25th of April. Now, this is going to make communication very, very interesting. So, as I've said, Mercury is all about communication. And when it's retrograde, when Mercury goes retrograde, for a lot of people, things can go wrong. It can be really quite a difficult time. It's one of those periods where you need to go inward instead of blurting everything out and, as I like to call, exfoliating. It's often not a full-on time for doing things as you've normally done in terms of socializing, and even at work, things are going to change. Delegating tasks to other people is not wise unless you can keep your finger on the pulse. You need to keep some form of tabs on what it is you're delegating, because generally during a Mercury retrograde, things go wrong. For some reason, people become untrustworthy. They're not in the same headspace as if Mercury was flowing. It's often a good time for people to clean up the filing cabinet. Make sure all your affairs are in order. Cross the T's, dot the I's. It's that type of thing. Because things can go belly up with a Mercury retrograde. So it's an individual thing. So for some people, a Mercury retrograde can be a good thing and they get a lot of things done. Organizing to write that book can happen during a Mercury retrograde, but not publishing the book. So it's all the prep work that you need to do. It's cleaning up your filing cabinet, getting all your documents in order, get everything in order. That's the best use of a Mercury retrograde. Otherwise, it can be quite difficult and a lot of things go wrong. And so with this Mercury being conjunct Chiron, the wound, representing the wound, there is a positive to Chiron, by the way. It's once you've mastered those wounds, you rock. You teach that which you have experienced as difficulties through your life. So it's not all negative. But what's going on at the moment, this massive healing that is taking place. And people are being confronted and forced to look at themselves and their wounds. What are your traumas? Where do things go wrong? Why is, where is the flow in my life? And particularly with communication. That's what's in front of us at the moment. And communication, globally in terms of trade negotiations and what's right and lawful, that needs to be addressed as well. So with Mercury retrograde, there is going to be quite a bit of intense involution in terms of communication. That's what is required. And hopefully that actually does take place, so it bears a lot of fruit. And that's what you guys need to be focused on as well for April. See how you deal with it for yourself. It might not be an easy time. There's a lot of fire that is going on in April. Be aware of the fire. Don't get burned, okay? Okay, thank you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, thumbs up, subscribe, share, all of those things, just so that I know that I'm not talking to a brick wall and that you're actually out there and learning something from these readings. I'm also on, I have my own Rumble channel. I also am on YouTube as well as the FCB channel. So heaps to choose from. So I really, really love your support. Thank you so, so much for watching. And I will see you next week. Okay, bye for now. Bye.